All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Marco Del Prince from VEEP, and we are very excited to conclude our VEEP webinar training with a final and extra installment that seemed to come about last minute in our last webinar, just based off of high demand for really wanting more information on how to apply this technology to your clients that are maybe a little bit more focused on putting on a little bit of muscle or healthy mass. It's important moving and discussing this program to your clients to really educate and come across from the fact that VEEP is much more about optimal health than it is about just weight loss. And the optimal health conversation, I think, is going to have a much wider appeal to your members that are, like, for example, looking to maybe gain a little bit of muscle mass. So due to high demand from this particular topic, we wanted to take an extra session and kind of really expand upon that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Joel Green, and he's going to get us started for our final training session. Joel?
All right, thank you, Marco. Hey, everybody. All right, I wanted to thank everybody in attendance today. You guys are the folks that are dedicated to improving your craft. So let's jump into it. So what we're going to do first is review some old stuff that's worth revisiting. The first idea worth revisiting is the idea of a half gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. It's worth revisiting because the most up-to-date science just pretty much confirms that's bulletproof. The next thing worth revisiting is the maximal dose of protein at any given time, and it seems to be right around 40 grams of protein, regardless of total protein requirement. So we're going to look at a concept called muscle full status, and basically that's when maximum protein synthesis is reached in muscle tissue. And once that happens, additional amino acids, additional proteins are deflected and shunted towards other pathways, either used, they're either burnt off as energy, oxidized, or they get stored as fat. So first thing to keep in mind is that. The next idea, the most single important idea in the whole thing, is the idea of 2xing calories for a 10 to a 12-day period. So long story short, our body is conditioned to basically mimic what we would call steroids in a post-starvation environment. And if you just think about it for a second, just go back, 5,000, 10,000 years. If starvation is a normal part of a human being had been starved for a number of days and then gained access to, a food source, a kill, the end of a hunt or a harvest or something like that, then feasting would occur. And so the body is metabolically programmed to add muscle at a hyper-accelerated rate for a very short period of time. It seems to be about 10 to 12 days, according to the research. And the genetic trigger for that is total food intake. So it's just simply 2xing calories for 12 days. And I've personally seen this in play for a number of years. And there's just nothing more powerful than that to trigger the hormone set that is going to maximize muscle gain in the body, and we can measure that by 2xing calories, and basically it just kicks IGF. Oh, I think I had IFG there. Sorry about that. IGF and testosterone through the roof. So old ideas worth revisiting. Number one idea is just 2x calories. So in the VEEP system, if you've got a client and you really want them to pack a ton of muscle on, just reach out to us. We'll 2x their calories in the system, and they are good to go, and watch what happens when you do that. So let's move on to the new stuff, the new science. So the old science tells us that, well, hey, you need to have your protein plus carbs in a 45-minute window after resistance training. So here's what's new. Getting back to the concept of muscle full status. So again, muscle protein synthesis is the idea that we're looking for, and that's really to saturate the muscles with the substrate they need to switch on essentially duplicating muscle. So the new science tells us a really interesting thing, and it's that we used to think, well, you needed to get some protein in right after your workout. And what the new science seems to really point to is that we need to rethink this, that with as little as 25 grams of protein and no more than 40, 30 minutes before workout, muscle full status can be reached, and it can last for between 3 to 5 hours. So the old idea that, well, you need to get something down right after your workout, it doesn't seem to hold up anymore. The thing that seems to really matter is the timing of the most recent meal. So if someone is training, if you're training someone and it's resistance and the goal is putting on muscle, then the thing you really have to look at is how long ago did they have that most recent meal. If it was more than 3 to 4 hours from the time they last ate, then the answer is yes. The old sort of adage of protein plus carbs right after a workout seems to hold. But if they've eaten recently, like within a couple hours, then it's not so important that they eat directly after a workout. Muscle protein synthesis from the pre-workout meal is still in play. And what this tells us is that there's just a very simple tool, which is 25 grams of protein paired to some sugar, ideally dextrose, before workout is sort of ideal. On what's called the mTOR pathway. The mTOR pathway,
muted.
It's just a cascade of enzymes. It acts like a switch, and when that pathway is switched on, then growth happens. So leucine is one of your rate limiters. So the key really is that for post-workout or pre-workout, you really want something that contains leucine, and your ideal for that is whey protein. But the interesting thing in the research that seems to be populating is the idea that if you're dealing with clients that don't have a lot of money, some non-fat milk works just as good. It's for your money. Non-fat, low-fat milk. It's tough to tell a difference. So let's get into some ideal workout meals. So if you're going to just use supplements, the ideal pre-workout meal would be your essential amino acids combined with dextrose, which is straight blood sugar, and that would be perfect. But if we're going to use food-based sources, then you would want to look at ideally non-fat milk or non-fat yogurt, and then combine that with honey, and then also with a little bit of watermelon. So the really great thing about watermelon is that it's basically that it opens up the nitric oxide pathways, and so watermelon is kind of your natural food for getting a pump. So pre-workout, non-fat milk, just mix some honey into that, and then have some watermelon separately. You're good to go. That's kind of the perfect pre-workout meal if what we're looking at is resistance. So in the VEEP system, the easiest way to accomplish a lot of this stuff is just to bookend a workout with an extra meal or two. So definitely a meal before and a meal after. And if you're 2xing calories, then that's an easy way to get the additional calories in. The thing about having some kind of sugar, like dextrose with those essential amino acids or honey, the reason for that is that leucine, it really needs insulin to work properly. So that's why that's included in there. And honey, as far as a food goes, is really a superfood. It does a number of amazing things. The reason honey is ideal is it actually aids insulin function. So just as a healthy meal, combining non-fat milk plus honey, it's just a really super healthy meal for a lot of different reasons. So, but those are just a couple of meals that you can look at to add to ideally maximize muscle gain. Another thing to look at also is post-workout. There have been some really interesting studies done with whole egg, and whole egg seems to be ideal post-workout to help the body reach muscle full status. Whey protein is also kind of your go-to in that, and then in both cases you would want to add honey. Okay, let's take a look here at fat burning really quick. So if the goal is fat burning with your clients, let's take a look at some ways to utilize functional nutrition around that to maximize the effect. So if you're training your clients fasted, the two essentials are caffeine and calcium. So caffeine prior to a workout does a number of things. Caffeine prior to a workout is what's called an AMP-K stimulator. So AMP-K is sort of the master switch that governs switching on youth and a lot of other things in the body, and caffeine stimulates that. Caffeine also potentiates a couple of other pathways in the body that help the body burn different types of fat. So caffeine is definitely a go-to thing prior to a workout. And if you combine that with calcium, so the deal with fat burning is it doesn't happen, it can't happen without the presence of calcium. And so we need intracellular calcium for fat burning to happen. So getting in a caffeine plus calcium source in a fasted state prior to a workout, if you're going to train fasted, is kind of the way to go. Now, if you're not going to train fasted, and even just as good or if not even better pattern is the Tuesday-Thursday pattern that is in the VEEP system. So that is a keto pattern, and basically it's just 2 small fat meals. So a really good piece of advice for your clients is to have that first meal prior to training, which would be something like an egg, and then come into training. Now, if you think about it, having the egg, it's not going to stimulate insulin in really a meaningful way. What it's going to do ultimately is get the body to make ketone bodies, which is the end product of working out anyway. So an egg is going to be, a good choice. And the trick also with that would be, you can do the caffeine and calcium along with that. But here's where it gets to the really good stuff, and that's the post-workout meal. So the post-workout meal, the trick with that, if fat burning is the goal, would be to wait about 45 minutes after the cardio workout. So the body's burning fat, let's just keep it burning fat. So wait into the 45 minutes. The body's still kind of in a starved state. And then post-workout, let's take a minute and kind of look at what an ideal meal would be. So post-workout, what we really don't want to do is get the body to make insulin too much. Instead, what we want to do is make the body work. So egg white is a perfect choice. So the body's going to register all that. It's going to stimulate a class of hormones called incretins, which do a number of things. Long story short, it's just going to help the body keep burning fat. Now, if you add some cheese to that, and it doesn't matter if it's whole cheese with all the fat. That's actually a good thing. The calcium from the cheese is your best source of calcium. It's going to also help fat burning. And then the real trick here is all the things we add into that. So we can make a, we can do a, oh, I forgot to turn on my notifications. Sorry about that. So the trick would be to make an omelet. And in an omelet, we'd have egg white, we'd have cheese, and then the other stuff. So let me kind of walk through that. So onions do a number of things metabolically. They're a really potent source of what's called the isothiocyanates. And these are compounds that stimulate the burning of brown fat. There's other compounds as well. So anytime you get a chance to add to a meal peppers or onions or any kind of a mustard, any kind of a wasabi, anything like that, these things in isolation or collectively really help fat burning, so you can get creative with your recipes. And then also in that, we'd want to add raw something to help butyrate production, and that would be so asparagus, onions also potentiate that. And so by making sort of an omelet with some cheese and some raw veggies about 45 minutes post-workout, you're making a fat-burning bomb. So you're going to burn a lot of fat in the workout because you came in either with fat or with fasted with some caffeine and calcium, burning tons of fat. When you wait 45 minutes, you burn more fat. Then on top of that, you have this meal, which is just a fat-burning nuclear warhead, and your clients just keep burning fat all the way until their next meal. So with the VEEP system then, kind of covering this and recapping, the core idea is 2x calories. Add a couple meals pre and post workout. Limit your protein consumption to no more than 40 grams at any given time. The key is really that timing of the most previous meal to the workout. That kind of determines if they absolutely have to have that post-workout meal. But the other key is just that pulse of 25 grams of whey protein with some honey prior to a workout, throw in some watermelon. And then in terms of fat burning, if you want to go fasted, caffeine and calcium are your friend. And then just wait about 45 minutes after eating, and then the trick is not to have sugars. It's to give the body things that make the body work. So egg white, just the body has to spend a ton of energy on digestion, and cheese just helps the body burn calcium, or helps the body assimilate calcium. And then throw in hot stuff and raw veggies. And so that's kind of your ideal nuclear warhead. And the good news is that's already set up in the VEEP system, that exact meal. So you can, if you time your fat loss, your cardio to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, the system's ideal. Just go with that first meal, sandwich in your cardio, and then wait 45 minutes, do that second meal for the Tuesday, Thursday fat burning pattern. So those are just a few concepts that we wanted to cover that really help with muscle gain. Again, just 2xing calories it'll blow your minds what that does. So that's about it for this session. I'll just leave it open to questions if there are any.
Unmuted.
Thank you, Joel. That was very fascinating. As I mentioned, folks, this will be recorded and we'll post on the YMCA platform. Very much appreciate your time today, and everyone have a great weekend.